of the world would tread many new, sunnier paths to make life and future even more secure, healthier and brighter. The International Solar Alliance is a
Hello.
trillion-dollar opportunity to
Good
serve
afternoon, everybody. You are requested to please join us for the high tea, which is served on the other side. Yes.
planet for all
You may
time.
please join us for the high tea, which is being served on the other side. This whole floor is ours today, so high tea is being served on the other side. Thank you. Everybody, thank you for joining us today. You are requested to please take your seats. We are starting the program very soon. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. Welcome you all to the 10th edition of the Environment and Energy Conclave of the Bengal Chamber. We will commence today's program. We would request the speakers to please take their seats on their dais. We have with us Mr. P.S. Bhattacharya, Mr. Saurav Kumar, Dr. Ajay Mathur, His Excellency Sri Upendra Tripathi, Sri Girish B. Pradhan, Mr. Franz Josef Schofferson, Mr. Sanjeev Besbarwa, Mr. Anirban Ghosh. We would also request the chairperson of the committee, the Energy and Environment Committee, Mr. Deb A. Mukherjee, and the chairperson emeritus of the committee, Mr. Arun Kumar Mukherjee, to please also come and take the seats on the dais. Thank you. May we now request Mr. Deme Mukherjee to please set the agenda for the day and take the session forward.
Thank you very much, Angana. A very good evening to all of you, ladies and gentlemen. And may I, on behalf of Bengal Chamber, extend a very, very warm welcome to all of you to our 10th annual Energy and Environment Conclave. This conclave is a very important milestone for the Chamber and very significant. As you would all appreciate, ladies and gentlemen, the energy landscape of today is seeing some disruptive changes right across the spectrum, from technology applications, business models, value chain convergence, grid management, for that matter now electric mobility, right across. And against this backdrop, the focus of this year's conclave is to deliver strong value propositions to all our stakeholders, bringing together this evening and tomorrow thought leaders, policymakers, industry partners, and academia to connect and deliberate on what the present looks like and what the future could be. This evening's session would be in 3 parts. The first part would be visionary addresses by the thought leaders and policymakers sitting here, followed by a very interesting presentation, which is a collaborative initiative taken up by the academia and industry under the aegis of Bengal Chamber on sustainability, which would be the beginning of a very interesting journey, and more about that through a presentation by 2 of the editorial board members, followed finally by great success stories on sustainability and energy security by 2 leading business houses of India, ITC and the Mahindras. On behalf of the Chamber, I am deeply grateful. I would like to register our deepest appreciation and gratitude to all the speakers assembled here this evening, and that they could make it, come here and agree to deliver what we are terming as a visionary address is really something that we would cherish, and we really look forward to it. We have Mr. P.S. Bhattacharya, Partha Bhattacharya, who we always consider as part of the Chamber, sir. He has been with the Chamber and has always been with us for years together. We are very happy and grateful to you, sir, that you agreed to come and kickstart the evening's proceedings. I'm particularly grateful to Mr. Saurav Kumar, who despite his very busy schedule acceded to my request, kept my request, and has come here just for 4 or 5 hours today. And he has scripted a great story in India, which is now traveling across the seas to the Western world and to the rest of the world. Particularly grateful to you, sir. And of course, Dr. Rajay Mathur, who has been a mentor, advisor, and who has stood by the Chamber and has always come to us and addressed us. We are deeply grateful to you, sir, for having taken the trouble of coming down. Terry is working closely with the Chamber, and they are our knowledge partners. Particularly grateful to His Excellency Shri Upendra Tripathi ji. He has so very kindly agreed to come and bring in International Solar Alliance. He will talk about the alliance, and of course, we hope that Bengal Chamber in its own way can add some value to the great initiative that ISA has now taken up. And as a country, we are very proud that the headquarters, or is it the interim headquarters of ISA, the headquarters are now in Delhi, in India. And of course, I am grateful, delighted, I don't know what adjectives I can use, that Mr. Garesh Pradhan has agreed to so very kindly come and address us this evening. Usually he doesn't, he feels a little hesitant to, address, especially the press. I can understand his position. And I'm deeply grateful to you, sir, for having taken the trouble of coming down and addressing us. And I'm sure he will enlighten us about the role of the regulator, which I have requested him to speak on. In this energy, in this hugely disruptive change that's happening, the regulator is going to play a great role. So what his vision is, what he sees as the role of the regulator. Particularly grateful to Mr. Franz Josef Schaffhausen from Germany. Thank you, sir, for taking the trouble of coming down. We are deeply grateful to you. He has taken the trouble of coming all the way from Germany just for these 2 days to address the chamber. We are also grateful to our 2 editors. They would shortly be joining us, Professor Mohsen Asadi and Professor Sudipto De, who are the editors of this publication, and they would be making a presentation after the address by the thought leaders. And particularly grateful to Mr. Sanjeev Besbarua of ITC. ITC has scripted a great story, and Sanjeev has always been, he's a great speaker. He has some compelling stories to share with us, and we are looking forward to his address. And of course, my dear friend Anirban, Mr. Anirban Ghosh, the Chief Sustainability Officer of the Mahindra Group, a Calcutta boy, but for good or bad reasons, I don't know, has chosen Mumbai as his home because he is the Mahindra face. But that he has agreed to come to Calcutta and address the chamber. We are so grateful to you, sir. On that note, may I now request Mr. P.S. Bhattacharya to deliver his address. Sir, 10 to 15 minutes, if that's all right with you. Thank you.
Distinguished panelists on the dais, distinguished persons off the dais, ladies and gentlemen. This particular energy environment conclave has entered the 10th edition, and possibly I am one of those who have attended maybe all of that. Maybe have missed 1 or 2 in between, but generally I have attended all these 10. The interesting thing to say is a certain perspective. Every time when we come and address or rather meet in this dais, one theme that we always talk about is the energy sector in the country is at a crossroad. That's a common sentence. It was said in 2008. It's going to be said this time again. The only difference is there has been a dimensional change. In 2008, it was basically coal and power, thermal power. The 2 sides, and there was a problem because the power sector was gallopingly adding to their capacity and coal was falling short, so there was some gap. These were the issues, and therefore the energy sector was at a crossroad. That continued for quite some time. In the last 2 years, or maybe more pronounced in the last 1 year, we have added a 3rd dimension to it, and that is the incoming of the renewables, the drop in the renewable tariff. So this year we have to say that the energy sector, from being at crossroads, have now crisscrossed into multiple kind of issues. If we just step back 2 years, 2014, rather 3 years, 2014 when the new government came, there was a huge problem in the coal and power area. Coal shortage was absolutely critical. Power stations were critical, and immediate steps had to be taken. The government announced a very, very ambitious target of 1 billion ton for Coal India and 1.5 billion ton for the country in the next 5 years. 1 billion ton for Coal India actually meant something like 15% CAGR growth, and 500 million expecting to come from the captive end users segment was an extremely tall order. What happened was, Coal India did deliver a little bit of growth. They grew at 7% for the next year, 14-15, and about 9% in the following year, 15-16. The other sector didn't grow. Whatever they were producing prior to deallocation of blocks, they are yet to reach that level even today. But suddenly coal is surplus. In 15-16, after Coal India did a fairly good job, possibly the best growth, 8%, 9%, whatever they achieved, we find that all the power stations are full with coal. There's a huge coal stock increase in power stations and things like that. And what happened in 16-17 is Coal India never could really grow because the demand wasn't there. There was a fall in demand. So somewhere, the prognosis of 2014, that there is going to be this kind of a growth in the thermal power sector, went hayway. Now, what could be possible reasons? There were two imminent reasons. One was the solar and renewable were coming in a big way. But basically, solar capacity addition really doesn't translate into actual generation to that extent because the PLFs are very low. Still then, there was a focus, greater focus on renewables. And the artificial reason was that the power stations which were ready to take coal didn't have a linkage because they didn't have a PPA. So these kind of artificial problems came in between. And for the first time, we witnessed a very interesting thing, that the PLFs of power stations are going down, down and down despite coal being available. This was not the situation earlier. We had a far less complex two-dimensional crossroads, but not this kind. In 2007-8, that was possibly the best year in terms of PLF. The country got a PLF of 79%. And the PLF gradually, modestly came down to 75% by 2011-12, and that was primarily because unavailability of coal and faster growth in thermal capacity addition. Current situation is 16-17, it went down to 60%, and this year it has been even less, despite coal being available. What does it mean? It means a huge amount of suboptimality being built into the system. See, what is the normative PLF that we can achieve at this point in time? If we have achieved 79%, the best PLF seen in 2007-8, which is 10 years back, since then, inefficient power units, quite a few of them have been phased out, though not to the desired extent, but some phasing out has happened. And whatever has been added are basically high efficiency, low emission technologies, so better technology. So today, we should be able to do better than what we have done in 2007-8, at least by 6 to 7%. So I think the average PLF, the optimum level is somewhere around 85%. Now for every 1% less PLF that we achieve as compared to the optimum, what do we lose? We are losing 17 billion units of thermal power. We are losing a demand of 10 million tons of coal for each percentage point. Now yes, one can say that we are seeing a fall in the tariff of renewables. The wind has come to 3.46. Solar, the latest one is 2.44. All that is fine. And at solar being 2.44, yes, a question mark has been put on further capacity addition in the thermal sector, no doubt. But what happens to the existing capacity? Now in existing capacity, by moving PLF by 1%, we are incurring, all that we are incurring is the variable cost of coal. And that power is possibly the most affordable, the most least cost power in the country. And as I said, from 85%, when you reduce by 1% point, 17 billion units of the most affordable power is getting lost. We are foregoing that. So today, if we are average at somewhere around 55%, if we can move to 85% over the next 5-6 years, it cannot happen overnight. It has to happen through a process. We can generate something like 500 billion units of power at a cost differential of not less than 80 paisa with the lowest possible solar power tariff. And 80 paisa, 500 billion units is 40,000 crores of rupees annually. To that extent, we are losing out on affordability. And affordability in a country like ours has to be one of the central themes in the total policy perspective. This is a country where the average power consumption is just about 1,000 units. It's about a third of China. The consumers here are not in a position to pay market price, the marginal consumers. So they have to get affordable power. And this is the most affordable power that we can think of. Yes, the question is that when you increase PLF, the power generators definitely are getting an advantage in terms of cost. Now, how that advantage gets passed on to the discoms, that we have to have a certain institutional mechanism instituted. And we have done now a great advent. I don't think any country has perfected the art of auctions so well. So the best idea is to have a reverse auction. For every power station which is having this extra capacity, they can participate in reverse auctions and the base price of the reverse auction can be kept at the moving average of solar tariff for the last 1 year. So you benchmark the solar tariff, bring in that, and a discount to that should be the basis of finding out who the most efficient solar power, thermal power generator is, and accordingly keep on signing PPAs. So that the capacity utilization is improved, but it is improved only in respect of those power stations which are efficient and are able to provide a higher discount. In any case, even at the base level, solar power average tariff, there is an inbuilt 50 paisa tariff advantage. I mean, advantage in favor of solar. That's because coal carries a 400 rupees per ton levy to promote clean energy and clean efficiency. Coal is one commodity which actually finances the competitor to fight against us. So in that fight, that 400 rupees is equivalent to about 24 paisa in terms of tariff. And when that 400 goes back to finance renewable and solar, it gives them a subsidy advantage of another 24 paisa. So it's an inbuilt 50 paisa advantage. I think the country needs to really introspect. As on date, we are following a suboptimal kind of a policy which doesn't have affordability at the center of it. We need to have that. And once we do that, there's a lot of things to follow. If we sort of utilize the thermal capacity to the fullest, we are creating a demand for coal. Additional coal demand means additional funding of the renewable fund, the clean energy and clean environment fund. 300 million tons of extra demand would mean 12,000 crores of additional fund being pumped in to push the renewable agenda forward. So we shouldn't be losing out on that. And with this kind of a process, I think we'll be able to reach an optimum level much faster. If we follow this, we can say that the total demand of the country, in fact 300 million additional production and 100 million ton more production is required to reduce imports. Import is today still about 200 million tons. We can reduce it by another 100 million ton. 100 million import will remain because for the coastal power stations and for the steel plants. So 400 million ton of additional production we can realize. And out of that, maybe half can come from the growth, normal growth of Coal India and the other players in the market. The balance 200 million, we can bring in commercial mining in a systematic manner. And with commercial miners coming in, there will be competition for coal, which will further have an effect on coal price. So the thermal power stations could become more and more efficient through sourcing of coal at a better price. So all these things taken together, a holistic look is required. And we should be able to do that. If we are able to do that, we will be able to pursue a more optimal kind of a path. This will also give us an advantage in terms of tapping the renewable source, giving a calibrated approach to incoming of renewables. Because renewable, what we find is through technological disruptions, the prices, the costs are falling at a rapid pace. So if we add all the renewables that we require today, we may not be able to take the advantage of further technological innovation in that field. So that also needs to come in a calibrated manner. I think we need to redesign our energy policy around these lines. Thanks for hearing me out.
Thank you very much, sir, for the very thought-provoking, initial address. Certainly has set us thinking, and let's hope the policymakers would take heed to your advice. The next address would be by Mr. Saurav Kumar. May I request you, sir, to please speak to us at least 15 minutes.
5-10 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Mukherjee. Let me first thank the Bengal Chambers for giving us this opportunity. We are indeed very grateful. We have been partnering with the Chambers for a long time, and we intend to continue. Distinguished speakers, excellencies, delegates from India and also from UK. It's indeed a great honor to share the dais with three people who have really shaped up my professional life in the last decade or so. And actually, the kind of work that they had done helped us put together what today ESL is known about a story which has grown so rapidly. In a 4 years' time, we have from $1 million company, this year should become close to $1 billion company. I mean, that doesn't happen every time in the world, and also multinational. And I'll start with Mr. Upendra Tripathi, because as Secretary of NRE, he showed how scale can happen. He showed that ambition from a 20,000 megawatt ambition to a suddenly 100,000 ambition, and you see the results on the ground. You have grid parity solar power, prices falling down the way it has. It has made so many things so relevant. Also, Mr. Girish Pradhan and Dr. Ajay Mathur. And let me tell you, the ESL story is scripted around these three gentlemen who are sitting here. 10 years ago, when I just was in the ministry going to the Bureau of Energy Efficiency, I had the privilege of working with Mr. Pradhan on a report that we had to make for the then National Manufacturing Competitiveness Council. And amongst many things was, how do we promote LED lighting? Now, if you look at what we have done in Ujala, is a carbon copy of what was written at that point in time. So this is, similarly, when I had no idea what energy efficiency was, up until I met Dr. Mathur, and learned from him what an energy service company, and particularly the service model that we are now making it so very deep in virtually many sectors. And that's how I learned how this model works. And if you combine the three, comes out what we call the pay-as-you-save model, which means it does not matter what is the cost of an energy-efficient equipment or an appliance. What matters is, if we are able to create a good and innovative business model, I can sell a LED bulb when it was costing me $5, 3.5 years ago, because my repayment period was 10 years. Which means, just to give an example, if you are using a $5 or let's say 300 rupee light bulb, every month if you save 12 rupees because of the usage, you pay me 10